is more liberal, more tolerant, more Democrat-leaning than the one before. It's not just because they're young.
For another point of view, it's Hard News with Russell Brown and Wammo on Kiwi.
It's from publicaddress.net's Media 7 show on TVNZ 7. Russell Brown with us this morning. Morning to you, Russell.
Good morning. I'm glad that all that noise is cleared. It just cleared now.
Yeah, let's hope the phone line holds there. There's been a lot of rain around the place.
Yeah, could be something to do with the rain last night, I suspect.
Yeah, wasn't it heavy in Auckland City?
Yeah, it was great, actually. I like it when the weather does.
Yeah, I like it as well. Except when it gets too close to waking up time and I have to get on the scoot and go to work.
Yeah, you don't like that, do you? No.
No, and of course it's not as bad as it is down south, pouring down in Christchurch today.
Yes, yeah, boy, they either get all or none, basically, don't they?
Yeah, it's all on or nothing. Hey, let's start. This is a great subject and very timely one, I think, to talk about now. And you're talking about it on Media 7 this week. That is the future of music sales. That is physical sales versus digital sales. And you've got some very interesting statistics.
Yeah. Basically, there was a report by the IFPI, which is the international recording industry body, that found once again that global music sales are slumping, 7% last year overall. But interestingly enough, there were 13 countries, including Australia, where there was a rise in the dollar value of retail music sales. And what happened in those countries was that digital sales, digital downloads have finally begun to fill the gap. Which is interesting. And in New Zealand, it was slightly hard to get these figures. Apparently it's commercially sensitive, but the dollar value of CD sales last year fell 4.7% to 74 million. Right. But digital download sales were up a quarter to 9.5 million. So that halved the fall in the market, which is kind of what passes for good news in the industry these days.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that digital sales here are still only 11% of the overall local market, compared to 43% in America.
That's because, I don't know, we still don't feel that well served.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there are plenty of stores. There's the iTunes New Zealand store, and there's Vodafone and Telecom and Digirama, and, of course, Amplifier. I have to say, for the show, for Media 7 this week, I've been looking around at some of them, and the Vodafone and Telecom sites just look unloved. Yeah. And that is the research that's come out of America last week, was that the mobile phone company music stores are languishing there. And unfortunately, because you would want a competitive market, no one really seems to be able to catch up with iTunes.
But see, speaking personally, right? I mean, I know, phones are getting better these days, and with smartphones and everything, and there's more space on them. But I don't want so much music on my phone. I prefer it on the computer at home or on a server at home, and a separate music player like an iPod or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got an iPhone, and the iPod part of that works really well for me. It's quite straightforward. Yeah. But when I had a Nokia, I just found the whole thing of buying and putting music on my phone incredibly confusing. Right. And it seemed unpleasant and difficult. And I actually tried to go to the Vodafone music store this week and log in and buy a track just so we could do a sound test on tracks from the various stores. Yeah. And I gave up, because it wouldn't accept my login, which is my login for my home internet. And okay. I just thought, go away.
The other thing is, I mean, so you can buy stuff from Vodafone, right? And so you pay for it there, and then that doesn't count against your data load for the month, does it?
No, I don't think it does.
But there are other services you can use on your phone worldwide, but the problem is that it counts against your data. You not only have to pay for the track, but you also pay for the data.
Yeah, and the big one is, of course, Spotify. And I know that if not the major labels, and certainly the independent labels, have actually signed up to allow to license Spotify in New Zealand. It's just there isn't the business case for it yet. That's the one where basically you don't own the music; it plays to you across the internet or across the mobile phone network, which is never going to work in New Zealand if we are charged for the data. Yeah. But I'm quite surprised at how much Spotify seems to have taken on, particularly in Britain. It seems to be working for people because they've, rather than just throwing a whole lot of music at people, they're doing interesting little things with it, and they're basically helping you discover music, which is one of the great things about the internet, and also play your own music as well.
So for a wee while now, the biggest music retailer in New Zealand has been The Warehouse.
The Warehouse, yeah, and their latest set of results weren't that flash, and they were quite blunt in saying it was poor music and DVD sales. So that, I think that suggests that The Warehouse is going to back out a little bit. Of course, we've now got JB Hi-Fi, who I think are going to become even more dominant. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go. I think that the little stores, your Conch Records, are going to be all right, and Slowboat in Wellington. But yeah, it does seem that the download stores are going to get more and more popular. I just hope that we don't end up in a situation like everywhere else where the iTunes store is so completely dominant that no one else gets a look in.
Yeah, as the default.
Yeah.
What about illegal downloading? And is that the reason why we're seeing still an overall drop in sales?
It probably hasn't helped, but that's a fact of life everywhere. It's interesting. The IFPI study, they said they highlighted Australia, Sweden, and South Korea as countries that had brought in harsh new copyright laws to block illegal downloading, and that's why their markets grew. Not quite so sure you can say that about Sweden, for example, because they did crack down on downloading. Of course, the home of the Pirate Bay.
Yeah, which is back up and running, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. That was back up and running.
Yeah.
The levels of peer-to-peer use were back up within months of the government doing it. So I think you have to look elsewhere for that. Maybe people are just getting a little bit more mature and looking to buy stuff. And you shouldn't discount things like streaming revenue, where artists or record companies can license their catalogues for use on things like Spotify, and they're not being bought at retail by people in the conventional sense, but they are delivering a return to the artist.
Interesting, though, that graph on the website information is beautiful.net.
Yeah, no, I've decided, talking to various people in the industry, that graph is actually not worth the bother of looking at. Nice idea, but they left out so many different forms of income and left out the nuances of relationships with record companies that I don't think it tells a particularly true picture. Because
on the basic premise on this graph, though, it did show that revenue from streaming, you had to, in order to get the same amount of income, say, from a CD, you had to get so many hundreds of thousands of streams in order for that to happen.
Yet, on the other hand, TuneCore, one of the US online music companies, released some stats, and their graph was quite different, and it showed that streaming revenue was bigger than single download and album download combined. So who knows? But there was on the so I've linked to it from the discussion about this topic on Public Address. There's another graph on that site which just blew my mind, and I still can't quite believe it. It's correct. In the US, the most mature download market in the world, where 43% of sales are digital downloads, single track downloads amounted to over $1 billion worth of business last year in America. Album downloads, 76 million.
Interesting.
No one's buying albums online.
Well, that's the nature, I suppose, of digital sales, isn't it?
Yeah,
you don't have to buy the album.
The album is dying.
Yeah. A shame.
Well, no, hopefully not. Hopefully that won't be replicated everywhere because...
Although you see, where Groove Armada have gone, they're deciding not to release albums, they're going to release EPs. Yeah,
well, I can see why they would do that.
Yeah.
I think it's probably, for some artists, that's a sensible response to the market.
And it keeps their music current as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that discussion is taking place on Media 7, the recording of that this afternoon at TVNZ. Otherwise, it'll be on your telly screen, TVNZ 7 tomorrow evening.
Yeah, 9:10.
Thanks, Russell.
Righto.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Russell Brown at publicaddress.net as well.